when I'm working with my clients, it's always next 6 to 12 months. Don't think about the past. Don't think about in 5 years' time when the business is 4 times the size. In the next 6 to 12 months, what structure does the business need? And just keep reviewing it. I strongly discourage, is that the right term, people to change it in between sessions. Let's agree that this is for the next 6 months. And, unless something goes terribly wrong, let's work with this. We've agreed as a leadership team that this is what we're going to run with for the next 6 months.
Welcome to the latest edition of Better Business, Better Life. I'm your host, Debra Chantry-Taylor, and today I've got our co-host, Jeni Clift, with us. Welcome to the studio, Jeni.
Thanks, Deborah. Good to be here.
Yeah. So as I think a couple of months ago, we actually introduced Jeni and Nick, and they're going to be co-hosting the series. We've been running through a few technical issues in the meantime, but Jeni's got some really great guests lined up, and so we'll be seeing more of those over the next few months, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But today I'm actually going to quiz Jeni a little bit because we did our tips and tricks series and we had such a great response from that. And we've had a few more questions come out of that. So today I just want to talk about some of the things that have come out of it and get Jeni to answer some questions for us. So Jeni, one of the things was that, people sort of say, hey, look, we've read the traction book and there's this great thing called the VTO or the 8 questions. And, surely that's the first place that I start. And we say, well, no, there's actually a different way of doing it. But people don't understand why. And I think that's the easy go-to is to go, well, let's just answer these 8 questions. But what is the EOS proven process and why does it work?
Yeah, it's interesting. Most people just want to get started, and particularly in the entrepreneur space, we all just want to jump in, feet first, and kick things off, and feel like we're making progress. So I guess as an implementer, it's kind of about slowing down and putting those foundations. And I always explain it as, it's a bit like building a house. You start, you've got your block of land, you've demolished the old property that was there, or, you're starting afresh, and they come in and they build all of those foundations and send you a bill for a whole bunch of money, and you go out and look at it and think, well, apart from a few pipes sticking out of the ground, it doesn't look any different. So it's that sort of process. It's really what we want to do is build those really strong foundations and make sure that the leadership team really have the skills that they need to to underpin the business and the rest of the team and start the process strong. So we go through a few things like hitting the ceiling. What does that mean? And that's every person, every team, it could be a department or it could be the whole business, hits a ceiling where you get stuck. You don't know how to get past whatever it is. And it may be, a person that, they've just reached the end of their capacity, or, maybe the products that you're selling or the way that you're doing things needs to change in a way. So building, teaching the principle of hitting the ceiling, and then we teach some ways of moving forward. We look at the accountability chart and really sort of look at that. What structure does the business need? And as most of us do as entrepreneurs, who do we have? And then creating those roles. And I'm sure you've seen the same thing. Yes. I've got this great person who's really good at X, so we'll create a role for them. But it's not really what the business needs. And we're always saying, let's build the accountability chart for the next 6 to 12 months. It's not set in stone. And we went through when we started the EOS process in our business back in 2017. What it looked like even in our first day, that focus day, was very different 6 months, 12 months, and 2 years later. And then, as in our day together, we go through and build that accountability chart for the leadership team, and then set the team off, leadership team, to go and build their own accountability chart with their own teams. We set some rocks, and that's those, setting those goals. And really, I view that in that first day as a bit of a learning exercise, teaching people how to set rocks that are SMART, so specific, measurable, attainable, or achievable, realistic, time-bound, but also teaching some tools on how to get those rocks done, how to set something in the time frame. Still got to do your job and manage your team and do all of the other things. So setting something you can actually achieve in that in that time frame, something that will move the business forward. But some tools to make sure that you're allocating time each week towards getting that rock done, because it's so easy to go back and just get back into the weeds and not get those done. And do what we did. We got to the end of our first quarter, and in each of our weekly L10s, it's saying, Rock's on track. And at week 11 over the 12, 13-week quarter, saying to the other people on the leadership team, does anybody remember what my rock was? Because I don't, and I haven't actually started it yet, with a few tears involved. We teach the meeting pulse, and that is teaching the level 10 agenda, but also what meetings does the business need? Who's in them? How long do they go for? So really setting that pulse or the cadence of the meetings, and then we take a first shot at the scorecard. So using my analogy of you're on a Greek island, and on a Monday afternoon, somebody comes out with your margarita and your scorecard. It's the only information you have in the business. What are those critical numbers that you need to know? So it's really setting those foundations and starting the leadership team thinking in a different way before you get into the next 2 days, which are that vision building and answering those 8 questions.
Yeah. And I think Gina kind of said it really well. Vision without traction is hallucination. And so our process is about actually instilling some traction, some discipline, some accountability before we get into that sort of stronger vision building. And I guess, a lot of clients kind of go, oh, but how can you possibly set rocks, which is your short-term focus for the stuff that makes the business go better? How can you set them if you don't know what the vision is? But the reality is these clients, they've been around for quite some time. They're established. They've actually got it. They've all got a vision, right?
Absolutely.
They've got it in their heads. Yeah, it's just not articulated particularly well. Or even sometimes it's articulated. I have to laugh because I've had a couple of clients where, they'll come in and they'll go, oh, we've got a vision, we've got a mission statement, we've got our core values. Like, great. My life is going to be so much easier in this focus day. Let's give it a go. And you go, right, can somebody tell me what our vision is? And they kind of go, I think it was something about,
Does anybody remember? And we've got great values. They're so strong. We've got 17 of them. Does anybody remember? And 2 people can remember 1 each.
Yeah. And others, I think 70 is probably a little bit of exaggeration, but I've certainly had companies who've come in and they've got 9 kind of core values, and you go, well, that's really, really great. But if you do ask the team right here, right now, who, let's face it, is the leadership team, therefore should be the people most attached to these values, what are they? They really struggle to come up with more than sort of 2 or 3. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this focus day is designed to set up the team with all the really, really good tools that they need to be really good leaders in the business, and to take them forward. And the accountability chart, let's talk a little bit about that, because this is something that I think is quite unique to EOS. And I think particularly the fact that we have this thing called a visionary role, which I think I suddenly clicked for me a few weeks ago when somebody said to me that the thing that I love about EOS is I have got a role in this business now that is really clearly defined. And that was the person who owned the business, which is often the visionary. So let's talk a little bit about that. Yeah, that accountability chart. What's the role of the visionary? What's an integrator? What does that look like?
So the visionary usually is the owner of the business. It's the person who it's their baby. They've created the business. They've come up with this great idea, and to provide their product, their service, whatever that is, and then built a business out of it. So it's that person that really thinks big picture, sits at 30,000 feet, doesn't do detail, has the big relationships, so the big clients, the big vendors, the people, the industry peers. But it's that person who, when you ask them about their business, they can just talk for hours about it. But they, how they actually do it, often they're like, I don't know, I've got people for that. And they're really good at surrounding themselves with great people. And the other thing, they really drive the culture of the business. They set the tone of how their business does things and their day-to-day interactions, the people within the business. So I love the term visionary, because it's the person with that really strong vision of what that business is about.
So quite often in businesses that we work with, that visionary is actually wearing more than one hat, though, aren't they? So they surround themselves with all these great people, and yet they're still trying to hold on to a lot of the day-to-day tasks. They're still trying to actually run the business. What's the danger of having a visionary kind of in the business, sort of running the business?
So, having been married to a highly visionary person who I've worked alongside for nearly 27 years, Nick and I would go off to a conference, an industry conference, and we would come back to our office and there would be nobody there. Like, it's the old shoot a cannon through the office and not hit anybody. Our staff would just disappear for the first few days after we came back, because I'm visionary as well, not as highly visionary as Nick, but I certainly have visionary traits. We would come back with these great ideas of all of these things that we could implement in the business.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd come back and we would just derail all of our staff from whatever they were working on with all of these great ideas. And a highly visionary person, normally within a couple of days, has forgotten about all those great ideas and moved on with even more great ideas. And one of Nick's more famous ideas is, he came to me one day so excited a few years ago, and he said, I think we should get a robot for the office. And I said, okay, and what exactly would this robot do? He said, I have no idea, but it would be so cool. And it's only, it's under $10,000. I said, okay. So why don't you go and put a bit more thought and research into said robot, and we'll talk about it later. And ultimately the answer was no. Had he gone to our staff, which is what he always did prior to implementing that structure around the visionary, the integrator, the heads of departments, he would have gone straight to a few of our techs, sold this great idea of a robot. They would have gone off and started developing the robot, because how cool would it to have a robot in the office when you're an IT business? Not done their job, not supported our clients, and got completely distracted with a robot for absolutely no reason. Like, our business did not need a robot.
Yeah.
So that's I guess the threat of a visionary, these great ideas. And when the owner of a business comes to you and as an employee and says, go do this, you do it.
Yeah.
Particularly if it's fun. So a visionary can really be a big distraction, and organisational whiplash. You're going down this path, and then all of a sudden you're going down a completely different path. You're not quite sure why, but the owner says we are, so we are. So it's all over the shop. And then you get this, going back to what I started with about, coming back from a conference and nobody there, people would go into hiding when we came back from these conferences, because they knew we'd come back with all of these great ideas, and I think they were just over it.
Yeah. Well, because I know what it leads to is that, as you said, they're going to jump when the owner says jump, and they're going to say how high. And you see teams, even really long established teams, that are working ridiculously long hours.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look into it, it's because they're always trying to execute on the latest, greatest idea that's come through.
Yeah.
And they never quite get around to finish it before the next one's thrown at them and the next one. And so they're just almost like chasing their tail the whole time to try and keep up with
a
things.
trail of destruction.
Yeah.
Half finished projects and half-baked ideas.
Yeah. So I think when you go to businesses and we actually say to these people, hey, look, we've got this box that's called the visionary box, and this is what you're going to be doing. You're still going to have those big relationships. You're still going to have those really big ideas, but you don't need to get involved in the sort of the day-to-day running of the business or leading the team. That's going to be done by this integrator role. Yep. You can see them almost kind of light up and go, oh, in fact, I had one of my clients today say, well, it felt like a huge weight had been lifted off his shoulders, that suddenly he didn't have to do it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the integrator, which is, that, every great visionary needs a great integrator. Mm-hmm. And the integrator is there, they're far more detailed. They're more, where the visionary is often quite emotional driven, not an emotional person, but driven on emotions and excitement and shiny objects. The integrator is usually more logic based. So, they usually have responsibility for delivering on the business plan and, delivering on the financial aspect of the business, special projects, leading the heads of the departments. And their job really is to execute the ideas of the visionary that have been deemed to be the way forward.
I should say sanitize. They've kind of gone through a process.
That's a good word. I like that word. Yeah. And so I sat in the integrator role for probably 10 years in our business with Nick as visionary, and he would come to me with his great ideas, and a big part of my role was to say no. Mm-hmm. Or, actually, I really like that idea, Nick. Can you go away and put some more thought into it and come back? Sometimes he got went off on other tangents and didn't. But it'd be, yeah, that's a terrible idea. No. Oh, I like that one. So it's just constantly listening. So the visionary can still come up with those great ideas, give them to somebody who actually listens and then executes on the things that will move the business forward.
And then, of course, so that comes with the structure of having the rocks and being really laser sharp focused on what's important as well. Because if you haven't got that laser sharp focused, if everything's important, nothing's important.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so this is one of the foundational tools that we use, called the accountability chart. I mean, it really is, as you said, we've got to think about structure first, people second. We've got to think very, very much, what does this business need? And it is a document that changes, right? This is not something you kind of put like the traditional organizational chart. Here's the title, here's the name of the person, and then almost that never really gets reviewed until we go through restructures and things. Yep. Whereas the accountability chart is really a living, breathing kind of document that helps people understand who's responsible or accountable for something, but Absolutely. It is reviewed on a regular basis, particularly in a high growth company, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we went through this, probably in our first 2 years of implementing EOS into our business. What we set in the in that first focus day, I don't know, it was our second quarterly. So we went through the vision building process, and I think it might have been sort of 180 days later, we looked at it and said, there's just something not working here. So we spent quite a bit of time in that quarterly going through, and I think we'd probably got caught up being new to the process and learning, and we'd diluted it to the leadership team. We had too many people on that leadership team. So we said, okay, how do we fix this? Because it's just not working. And, when I'm working with my clients, it's always next 6 to 12 months. Don't think about the past. Don't think about in 5 years' time when the business is, 4 times the size. In the next 6 to 12 months, what structure does the business need? Yeah. And just keep reviewing it. I strongly discourage, is that the right term, people to change it in between sessions. Let's agree to this is for the next 6 months. Yep. And, unless something goes terribly wrong, let's work with this. We've agreed as a leadership team that this is what we're going to run with for the next 6 months.
Yeah. And it's basically identified all the major functions. So really that's not going to change in that next 6 months. No. But we do need to review it every 6 to 12 months to go, is it still right? Yeah.
And if somebody leaves, then normally at that leadership team level, if there's a vacant role on the leadership team, the integrator steps in and fills that until you fill it externally, internally. But the role doesn't change. It might be a bit different person, but the actual role stays as it is.
Absolutely. Okay, cool. So, I mean, it's one of the fundamental things I loved about it was the fact that it's about accountabilities. It really clearly spells out what you're accountable for. We do it based on the structure first, then put the person in there. And it means when you've got it fleshed out for the whole organization, anybody can look at the whole org chart and go, I've got an issue with customer complaints. That's the person who's accountable for it. And they can actually go and find, they know exactly who
to talk to.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. And then that tends to feed into one of our other foundational tools, which is the scorecard, right? Yep. So tell us a bit about this, because scorecard is part of the data component. Tell us a little bit about scorecards and why they're important.
So the scorecard, and some of the questions I get asked about the scorecard, in our focus day, we set the scorecard for the leadership team. So, if the owner of the business is sitting on their Greek island or whatever their happy place may be, and they get that scorecard on a Monday afternoon with their cocktail, they can look through that and say, everything's on track and I can get another cocktail, or things are getting a bit wobbly, I need to get on the phone, or oh my god, I need to book a flight home. So what are those critical numbers? So usually it's things like cash at bank, something around your sales pipeline. So I encourage people to look at what are the core parts of your business and pull a couple of really key numbers, leading, lagging numbers that if these things are achieved, what the outcome will be. So if you need to bring in 10 new sales each week, then your pipeline needs to have 100. coming through that funnel, then that's your number. So, and if it's, your number's 100 and you're only hitting 60 or 70 week in, week out, because that scorecard gives you 13 weeks of rolling data. So you can see those trends. And, we had one situation in our business where a new person started in a leadership role and started playing the system, if you like. So we then, when we looked at it, and there was peaks and troughs. And when you looked back through our data, and all of a sudden it was just green all the time, and we went, this doesn't look right. So we dug into it, found out what was happening, and then put another number onto the scorecard to make sure that the right thing was being done for the business and our vendors, because the person was not paying suppliers on time in order to keep the bank balance looking good.
Right.
And so we put, supplier invoices overdue as another number on there. So what are those numbers that you can look at and know as overall big picture, business as a whole, that, everything's on track?
Yeah.
And when it starts to go off track, you can do something straight away, because you're looking at this every week. If you look at it at the end of the month, too late. You can't change it. Or at the end of a quarter, or the end of financial year, even worse. And then your business will get to the point where every single person in the business has one or two numbers on a scorecard. So maybe the person who answers your phone, all calls answered within 3 rings. So what are all of those numbers? Having a person accountable for them. So they may not be the person that does all of the work behind it, but they're the one who actually fills in the number on the scorecard. And, it's the old red and green, did you meet target or did you not? And if you've got a salesperson who is not making the phone calls or, following up on the leads at the start, there's no way they're going to hit their numbers. So it just gives you that visibility right down into the business. And I always describe the scorecard as it's like shining a damn big spotlight into every corner of the business, and there is nowhere to hide.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think it's kind of interesting too. People think that a scorecard is like a dashboard. It's kind of set in stone and that's always going to be the same. But again, we work on this 90-day world in EOS. And actually every 90 days, we're looking at it and saying, hey, this is what we were measuring last quarter, which is great. But what's happening in the business right now? And so if you're struggling with cash flow, for example, you might add an additional metric that will help you to understand where that is at for the next 90 days. And that becomes the focus for the next 90 days. Or you might actually recognize that you've got trends in the business, and so therefore the sales number is not the same every single quarter, but you know that quarter one is a big quarter two is a bit of a dip, whatever it might be. So I think that's the important thing, is that scorecards, they're not just for the sake of kind of ticking a box and going, yes, we're doing our metrics. It's to really help you make business decisions based on data that helps you to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that consistency too, like, all of these fancy dashboards, they show you right now, but if you want to know what happened last week and the week before and the week before, you've got to go and look for it. Where the scorecard, you can look at it and say, these are the peaks and troughs. That number was doing really, really well. It was kind of climbing, and now it's starting to decline. What's changed? So it's that visibility of a period of data that, as you said, can help you make good business decisions.
Yeah, I love it. No, it's actually it's really, really simple. It's really funny. I've got different clients of different sizes, different technological capability, shall we call it? And I mean, some people have literally got proper dashboards, and they're using software and they're tracking all of this and seeing the 13 weeks at one glance. Other people have spreadsheets and they're just looking at a spreadsheet. And I've even got one client who literally just prints out. They have a printed out version of the scorecard, and they use a pink and a green highlighter to go green is on track, pink's off track. Big whiteboards. Big whiteboards. We used to have one in our event centre. We had a big whiteboard, and that's where the numbers went, which means we could easily at a glance see where things were at, which is good. Yeah.
Keep it simple.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I recommend that people don't automate that process. Whoever's accountable for that number needs to go and actually fill it in themselves and take ownership. Because you get in and you go, I don't know if it's right, it's red, but it's automatic. It could be right, could be wrong, who knows? Not my problem. If you actually have to go and count the number yourself or find the number yourself and put it in and it's red, you take it more personally and take ownership of it. And that's the point.
And the same with in the actual level 10 meetings, I actually encourage the person who owns the number to be reporting on the number too. Because there's a certain psychology of like, okay, Debra, this sales figure that you were supposed to have, 10 books sent out this week. I have to say, I only sent out one this week. And then suddenly it's becoming, it's a real, it's my number. I have to own it.
And what we found through the process, and we pushed EOS down into our business pretty quickly by, I was going to say request of our staff, but it was stronger than that. They were like, what is this thing? We want to do it too. Let us in, let us in.
Mm-hmm.
So we rolled it out very quickly. And what happened was when people within teams were not meeting their numbers, so, go around the sales team, my number's green, oh, mine's red. But it was red for the last 4 weeks. What are you doing? So it became that sort of peer group management and calling each other out and saying, okay, how can I help you? I don't know how to do this. Well, I can teach you that. Let's, straight after this meeting, I'll take you through it again. So it became that peer group management and peer group pressure, like you said, of, I don't want to be standing up each week and saying, I haven't met my numbers.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, so the other tool that you talked about was rocks. And rocks, I mean, this is not a new concept, right? I remember seeing a Stephen Covey video
back
from
in the
70s.
With the big hair.
Big hair and big shoulder pads. But it's a very, and that's the whole thing with EOS, right? Nothing in EOS is actually new. No. It's all very, very good proven principles. But the principle behind it is that we're laser sharp focused on the big things that will actually make the boat go faster, point us in the right direction. But how many is like an ideal number of rocks, in your opinion?
Well, I think is it to set 7 each quarter and then not do any? Is that?
No, that's just me.
Yeah. That's you. That's you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You can edit that bit out. So I don't like people to have any more than 3. A visionary, none. Because they just don't get them done. They will sign up to all of them and get done none done normally. I can do that. I can do that. I can do that. How many's done? None. Rocks? No. What rocks? Is usually the question. 2 to 3.
Yeah.
Because you still have to do your job. You have to manage your team. You don't want to be there 14 hours a day. When everybody else goes home, do some work on your rocks. 2 to 3. I kind of like 2.
Yeah.
Because you're just setting people up to fail if it's any more than that. And everybody says, but it's so important. We have to get this done. Okay, so how in this quarter? It has to get done in this quarter. How long have you needed to do it? 4 years.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So do you want to rethink that?
Yeah. And I think also it's sort of, it's not, we're not saying that if you get those 2 rocks completed, you can't do more work, but it's exactly. Like, get those 2 done first. And once you've ticked them off, then you can do something else. But so don't add and subtract rocks, but at the end of the day, set yourself up for success. Like you said, be really realistic. In fact, I've got 5 questions up here that I wanted to just quickly share about rocks. So the 5 questions we usually ask is, why do we actually need to do this rock? So, what is the value add to the business here by doing this rock? How will it make the business better? What does done look like? So if you're going to commit to a rock, how will the leadership team know it's actually complete? I would say, what does success look like? When can I break open the champagne? I need to know what that actually looks like. Where does it fit in with the 1-year plan or the 3-year picture? So being really, really clear, this is about starting with the end in mind. So we've got our 10-year target, our 3-year plan, 3-year picture, and our 1-year plan. How does it kind of fit into that? Number 4, does it address a significant issue that stops us to getting to our goals? If yes, what does it do? How does it do that? How much time will it take to complete it, either hours or days? So that's a sanity check, isn't it? To kind of go, actually, if you think on top of these rocks, you've got all your business as usual, and that's going to take up 80% of your time, and you've probably got 20% to spend on doing this rock. So what is the scope and the size of the work, and are we actually being realistic in terms of, how many rocks we set for ourselves and what the size is? And then finally, what are the major milestones needed to be mapped out to understand how to do it? Because I think you're going back to your original example, you get to the 11th week and people kind of go, I've forgotten what the rock was about. Whereas if you had the milestones kind of mapped out, you could go, okay, we're at week 4, we're up to number 2 in the 5 milestones. We probably are on track. Yeah.
And I think, if you're using one of the EOS software tools and there's milestones in there, it actually makes it easy for, if the integrator is running the meeting and, Debra, how are you going on that rock? And you say, oh, yeah, it's on track. Say, well, but none of the milestones have been ticked off.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have done them. I just need to go and tick them off. I will get that done before the next meeting. Fantastic. Go you.
Yeah.
Ah, yeah, I actually haven't started. Well, it's not on track. It's off
Yeah.
track.
Yeah.
So again,
Let's not
it's
kid
just
ourselves.
creating that accountability and that nowhere to hide.
Yeah.
But it's also the thought process of, if you start that the thinking around that rock with what does done or success look like,
Mm.
and then work backwards from there and create the steps, it's easy to get into overwhelm. I've got this rock, I've got to get this big thing done in the next 13 weeks. I don't know where to start. It's too big. I'll
Yeah.
go and do something else. And then another week's gone by, another week's gone by. So it's just breaking it down into those chunk size bits. What can
Yep.
I do this week? And then what's the next logical step, the next step, the next step? So it just sort of takes away that overwhelm.
Mm. It's a little bit like a study plan, isn't it, when you're doing a
Yeah,
study plan for your exams and things, because I always tend
exactly.
to leave things to the last minute.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, God. Excuse me. My apologies. Okay. So we've talked about the first step is this focus day, and it really is about getting these foundational tool sets that actually when you leave that room, you're going to start implementing some tools that will fundamentally make a difference to your business kind of immediately. We're not averse to people self-implementing, right? If you want to self-implement, we're absolutely fine with that. But there's a definite advantage to working with somebody to go through this process. And you've been through it, and we're now using somebody to actually help us with our sessions for our business as well. So what do you think? Why would you choose to do it with an implementer as opposed to just do it on your own?
So we had been looking for something for quite a while, and we tried various other things, sort of competitors to EOS. We tried a couple of industry tools. The big thing, or two big things for us, one was discipline of actually setting aside those days to be working on the business rather than
Mm-hmm.
in the business. So we knew that having that implementer coming in on those day sessions meant that we had to do it. We couldn't cancel and postpone and just keep pushing it back. Or I haven't
Yep.
done my rock, so let's push it back 2 weeks. Like that was going to make a difference. Um, but for us, so it was that discipline. It was the knowledge. You can read a book and interpret in your own way. You can skip over the hard bits and pick the easy bits. So the cherry picking thing, which is a trait of a visionary, do the easy stuff and what wait till I figure out the other stuff. So that were the two big things for us, was that discipline, but also the expertise. We knew we needed to bring somebody in who would take us through and do it properly,
Yep.
because we'd tried self-implementing other things, and we said at the time it didn't work. We didn't know how to make it work, and we didn't want to make that mistake again. We committed to this and we wanted to do it properly,
Yep.
because I'd been in the general manager or integrator role, as we now call it, for 10 years. I'd been trying to get out of that role for 9 years, and nothing that we had tried stuck.
Yep.
So we just needed to do something different,
Yeah.
and do it properly.
Properly. Yeah. And I think also, if you think about, I know certainly with the clients that I work with, the visionaries are very strong personalities. That's kind of the nature of a visionary. And if you try to do that yourself, or even if your integrator tries to do it, there can be that tendency again of that the visionary says something and everybody else just agrees
Yeah.
because that's what the visionary said. Whereas a facilitator that we are, we can actually pick up and make sure that everybody gets a fair say in it, that we are actually fighting for that greater good as opposed to just going along with what the
Yeah.
visionary says. Yeah.
Absolutely. And particularly in our case, was husband and wife.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
so, excuse me, the dynamics of us being married and working together for so long, both being visionary,
Mm-hmm.
and then, we'd have conversations at home and, in the car and that sort of thing, and then sort of bring our team into somewhere down that conversation, so they didn't have the backstory, the thought process that we did.
Mm-hmm.
And we recognized that was difficult for our team to navigate. So having that dynamic for us really, the EOS process really worked for that, because we come together,
Yep.
we talk about things in that room together, rather than us just presenting it as a product rather than a discussion.
Yep. Okay, good. Hey, look, I'm conscious that we're coming to the end of the show. It always goes so quickly. We're going to run a whole series of these, so where just you and I talk and answer some of the common sort of questions or misconceptions, or just giving some tips and tools around EOS. Is there anything you'd like to kind of finish up on, as a bit of a tip or a tool for the listeners?
Ooh, throw that one at me
I
without
know, that was
thinking
good, wasn't
about
it?
it. Good on you.
Yeah, my pleasure. You're welcome.
That's what I was thinking. Thanks.
Yeah.
I think know your limitations is probably, just thinking through that, why did we get that implementer? If you are super disciplined and you can really dig in and put time aside and be really structured about it, self-implement by all means. But as the business grows, and we sort of, where we come in as implementer is around that 10 staff. It's the value of having an external facilitator come and work with you. We just knew that we couldn't do it on our own. So if you do have a bigger business, please reach out and talk to an implementer. If you're a smaller business, self-implement. And if, one or two staff, start with EOS. Get some of those tools into place to start your business. Having some structure in it is better than nothing. So yeah, it just makes, from my personal experience, it makes your life a whole lot easier having something like EOS that just spreads that load and the clarity around the roles. And that's going back to the accountability chart. If husband and wife, particularly for Nick and I, we struggled for a long time around clarity of roles, who did what. We both did the things that we both love to do and avoided the things that neither of us like to do. And then we got really upset at each other because we felt that the other one should do it. I don't like doing it, so you can do it. Well, I don't like doing it either. You do it. Well, I don't want to do it, and all of that sort of stuff. So just get those foundations right, get that accountability chart, get those rocks in place. Sticking on that focus day, it just makes business and life a whole lot nicer place to be.
Completely agree. Traction first. Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Well, look, Jeni, thank you so much for your time. If you want to find out more about Jeni and Nick and I, you can go to businessaction.com.au or businessaction.co.nz. We've got a whole raft of information about the various services that we offer for established kind of growing businesses. Jeni, pleasure to talk to you as always, and we'll look forward to the guests you've got coming up. In fact, just tell us a little bit about, you've got a couple of really exciting guests. Do you want to just share that with us?
Yeah, so I've got a few people that I'm going to be chatting with over the next few recordings who are running EOS in their business. So, different industries, member of entrepreneurs organisations, so a few EOers around the traps. A couple of guys who've written books that we'll be talking about. So Will Scott, who's got Culture Fix, but the one that's I'm really looking forward to, not that I'm not looking forward to those ones, is Katerina Papamaku, who is a psychologist who works in the area of mental health in the workplace. So I'm going to record a couple of sessions with her. The first one around what's happening in the workplace now. We're talking, all the mental health issues that are coming through after COVID and people getting back into the office and those sort of things, around burnout and just the different expectations of the, different generations. We'll do a second one that's aimed really more at employers, how to protect ourselves in our business when there are claims, particularly false claims, which is happening quite a bit at the moment. People going out on stress leave when they're just, people, you're trying to hold somebody accountable and they go out on stress leave and they're calling out bullying. So how to manage that in the workplace, how to protect yourself, how to protect the business, how to manage a situation like that if it's happening for you. So really looking forward to those.
Yeah, those sound absolutely great. Now, we do appreciate that you're obviously in the middle of kind of, moving house, country and everything else.
Yeah.
So can't be exactly sure when those will come out, but definitely keep an eye out for them. Go to betterbusinessbetterlife.co.nz. You'll find all the information there. You can subscribe on the various different podcast channels. And we look forward to sharing more of our stuff with you over the coming weeks.
Fantastic. Thanks, Debra. Lovely to have a chat.
Thanks, Jeni.